I want to thank Deputy Pearse Doherty and Deputy Claire Curran for proposing and seconding me for the position of Taoiseach. And in line with the theme of change, I think it's only appropriate to note that today, for the first time, a nominee from a party other than from Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael has managed to garner the greatest number of votes. Perhaps that makes us winners again. I see, Count Corlett, that we still live rent-free in Micheál Martin's very, very narrow and bitter mind. I see that he proposes to continue this diatribe and vitriol that sustained him and served him very badly in the course of the election campaign. We're all agreed that the motif and the theme emerging from this election is one of change. But I hear a note among some members which might seek to suggest that this is some kind of capricious nonsense on the part of the electorate, that perhaps people weren't really sure what they meant about change. It was just some kind of fuzzy, ill-defined feeling. Nothing could be further from the truth. I was delighted to go the length and breadth of this state and to talk to hundreds, maybe thousands of people. And they told me what change means. Change means a secure roof over their heads. Change means not having their adult children and perhaps their children living in the box room. Change means being able to pay your rent and not worrying from week to week or month to month that the landlord might knock on the door and tell you that it's game over. Change means not having your elderly relative on a trolley, not having that surgery or procedure cancelled again, not getting a letter from the authorities, from the hospital saying the good news is that you have an appointment, the bad news is that it's 18 months away. Change means knowing that you have enough to get by and get by reasonably well. Change means that you're not constantly bothered by the €2,000 in rent, €1,000 for childcare, and a real struggle to insure your car. That's what Imelda told me. It was actually after the election. She's from Cork but now lives in Coolock and voted for another winner, Deputy Denise Mitchell. Change also means dealing with the climate emergency, not rhetorically or in the box-ticking way that the establishment do, but really getting to grips with the green agenda. Change also means that the old order must pass. And you see, that's really what the problem is here. Because, of course, government formation is about numbers we can add. Of course, government formation is about policy coherence. No one's arguing to the contrary. But government formation is also about power and who wields it. And the reality is that Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael have run the show for almost a century, and by Christ, they're not minded to let go. That's really what all of this is about. People told me very clearly that they were voting for us to be in government. So the 500,000 people or more who voted for us were clear that a vote for Sinn Féin wasn't a protest. A vote for Sinn Féin was for a different government. And yes, a government that would have the courage, the imagination, the energy to actually do things differently. A government that would put the citizen and families and communities front and centre, not big corporates, not the elites, not the well-networked, not the people that you used to knock around with in your Galway tent, Deputy Martin. So the winners in the election, and let me say, everybody who's elected here is a winner. But the fact is, to do the maths, the winners were Sinn Féin, were our colleagues in the Green Party, the Social Democrats, and every party who went out and said to the people, there is a different way and a better way to do government. And I know in voting for us, people said, we want to give you the chance. We've seen the shambles, the same old, the same problems persisting generation to generation on the watch of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. And they said, Sinn Féin, show us what you're made of. Get in there, perform and deliver. The real winners in the midst of all of this, of course, need to be the people. That's really, at the end of the day, what this is all about. I haven't heard anybody ask Micheál Martin to stay quiet, although I might suggest someone in his party might proffer some of that advice to him. The reason why the issue of mandate is such a big deal is because two parties, but let it be said Fianna Fáil in particular, have decided in an arrogant, dismissive, self-righteous way to disregard entirely the representatives of more than 500,000 people. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't really care what Micheál Martin thinks about me. I care less what he thinks about Sinn Féin. I won't take personal offence at that. I tell you what I will not tolerate, and what is grossly offensive, is to suggest to the citizens who vote for us that somehow uniquely their representatives are to be left in perpetuity on the sidelines because Micheál doesn't like us. We could all extol the past, we could all write books on that, we could all trade hurts, we could all trade insults. That gets us nowhere. As a matter of fact, mechanisms to deal with legacy in the past have been agreed. Micheál Martin should know this. I know that Leo Varadkar knows this. And they need to be legislated for. So rather than all of the bile that you exude, Deputy Martin, the constructive thing to do is to commit your party to moving those structures forward and to get the British government on board for that too. I think that the most important thing that needs to happen now is a serious attempt to form a government, and a new government. And lots of people will speculate as to, in government formation terms, what does change mean? We've said before, and we shared this view with other colleagues, my first preference is for a government without Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael, for a left-leaning progressive government, and we will continue to work for that. But I also recognise that the very worst possible outcome from this election is Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael back in government together. Not alone do I think that would be a disastrous outcome, I will wager that the vast majority of people would regard that as a step backwards. I'm very clear that that's not what people voted for. So let me propose this. Let me propose that we actually listen to the voice of what people have said, in a generalised way around change and a new beginning and moving forward, and then in a very specific way on the specific policy items. I think we need to talk to each other about those things. And if Micheál Martin is concerned about the democratic practices within my party, I am deeply concerned by a party and by a leader who sat around a cabinet table with people who were subsequently jailed for corruption. I have a problem with that. I think most reasonable people have a problem with that. I trust that that is no longer the case within Fianna Fáil. I'm sure we will be assured that it is not the case. I know this too, that if you keep reaching desperately for the past, it really says that you're not up for the future. It says that there's something profoundly wrong, profoundly arrogant and dysfunctional in your political positioning. So I hope that you will change that position, but perhaps you won't. But listen to this. If you don't, whether you do or whether you don't, the people who vote for us aren't going anywhere. They live here. They deserve good government. They deserve the respect of being heard. And nobody, not Micheál Martin, not Leo Varadkar, not anybody will disrespect the people that we represent. We have made a commitment to them to represent them well and to make our very best effort to deliver that government of change. And that is precisely what we intend to do.